Stoa is a digital campfire where we cohere in dialogue about what matters most at the knife's edge of what's happening now.
So welcome to the Stoa, everyone. I'm Peter Lindberg, the steward of the Stoa. And today we are doing something a little different here, something called Embodied Book Club. And the book is Collective Presencing. And the author of the book is here, Ria Baeck. And Ria has been with the Stoa almost since the beginning. I think there's like 25 sessions have happened so far of Collective Presencing, which happens every Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. And I looked through my archives. So Ria actually emailed me on April 9th after reading one of my weird journals. And then it just felt like it was meant to be because a few people like Richard Bartlett and whatnot were mentioning Ria's work to me. And I've been aware of it for a while. And so I invited her on and then it just clicked. And then reading her book, I'll read the first line of the book. In this book, you will find none of the gloom and doom scenarios that crowd so many books, articles, and websites these days. I prefer to dispense with these and focus instead on what is possible. And that feels so aligned with what's happening here at the Stoa and the strange attractor that's drawing us together. And it's really a space that to hold complexity together. I will hand it over to Monos right now.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, so of course, welcome to the Stoa. It's a digital space where we can gather and talk about what matters most right now at the knife's edge of what is happening, right? So the Embodied Book Club is a little bit of a different take on what we want to do. And I'm going to spend as little time as possible talking about, there's not too much structure to it. This is the first two chapters. I'm going to hand over to Ria to just frame it for us. She'll get to a part where we will just touch on a few pieces of information, and then I'll quickly share that with you guys, and then share my screen, just show how to get to some of the things easily and quickly for future sessions as well, and then we'll dive right back into it so that we can use the little time we have as effectively as possible. All right, Ria, you can take it away.
Wow, welcome everyone. I had a little shock somewhere half the week that Peter said there's 40 people and probably 50 by the end of the week. I'm like, oh, okay. But welcome everyone. I know quite a few of you and some new names, that's fine. I want to start with thanks to Peter, as he gave it the good platform to Collective Presencing and ongoing. And actually this Manoj, who kind of made this happen, this book club happen, like do all the work behind the scenes and then do the technical hosting. And I want to point out also Helen, who is here and who was actually the editor of the book and my housemate and friend, and also was present in the co-creation of all the content. So without all these people and many more, the book would not have been there. I want to speak a bit to the Embodied Book Club. I've never done a book club. I don't know how it should look like, so it might look different than how you thought it would be, should be. But from the beginning, when this idea was ripening, I wanted to avoid that it would become like a mental space only, like where we start to argue about certain topics. And so that's why we came up with that name of Embodied Book Club. I want to try here, and many of you have been in the practice already, wanting that we can hold and create that same kind of embodied presence as what the whole book is about. And that when we speak, and also when you're reading, that we notice what's going on in ourselves, in our bodies. What kind of responses do we have to what we read or to what people are saying here? And that's why for the ones who have been on the idea boards, which Manus will explain a bit more, in that second column, there is indeed about how did your body respond to certain sentences or paragraphs, or so also when we're going to speak here for now and all the sessions, invite for yourself, like, to speak also what is in your body. Like, are you excited, or is your attention floating away when you read something? Or maybe you read a sentence and you stare at it and you're not getting it, or so all that we really want to invite in here as also meaningful. So this is not just only about, let's say, conceptual ideas, but also all the rest of what is alive in us. So, and it's, yeah, we have 6 sessions, we have 9 chapters, so I had to cram them in a bit. And I'm sure we are not going to cover everything. We will see how it goes. It's for every one of us. It's an experiment for the STOA, for me, for all of you. Probably different sessions will have different formats, because I will prepare along the way. And I give now the word to Manus to actually explain a bit of all the behind the scenes where we can actually communicate, and before we go into a check-in. Yeah. Over to you, Manus.
All right. Can everybody see my screen? I'm quickly sharing it just to show visually what I want to show you.
Yep.
All right, fantastic. So when opening the STOA website and going down to the Wisdom Gym here under the Embodied Book Club session, there's a second link that Peter put for us here. That link will open the information for the book club. On this link, we just put basic information, the dates, which chapters we will be reading. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more. And very important, here's the links to the sticky boards. When you click on this link, it'll open something that looks like this. And anybody can, as they're reading, like the titles of the columns say, what comes up for you, if your attention is drawn to something, or you sense, something in your body that's coming up, or perhaps something you'd like clarification on, or question that you have about. You can, add your note here. We can also, very interestingly, you can upvote others' notes. This is one of the ways that we can also interact with each other through this. Part of the experiment of doing it this way. And yeah, that is actually the basics. Then we also created I'm going to put a link here in the chat for us. We also created a chat channel on Discord. Here is the invitation in the text chat. That when you open that, then you have the Discord application. You open the Stoa server. On the left-hand side, there's a lot of chat channels here that you can interact with the Stoa community. When you scroll down a little bit, you will see there's this section called the sandbox. And on the sandbox, there's a collective presencing channel that we'll have. And feel free to further the discussion through the week here, you know, as we progress. And this is open and this will be ongoing.
Just to jump in there, if it's your first time on the Discord, you're not going to see any of those. You're going to have to go to the rules section, I believe, and then click the thumbs up right there, and then all that opens up for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter, for that. All right. And yeah, I think, did I miss anything? I think that was it from my side. I don't know, Ria, if we want to jump in.
Yeah, the experiment is a bit that if I can see what is actually capturing your attention or which questions come up, that I have some input to look at how to actually design the next session. That's the idea behind it. And we'll see if it works. It's an experiment, as we said. Yeah, as we're so many, I've been sitting the last couple of hours. How do we do this in the same kind of energy and attention that we normally have? We're not going to do a check-in with 40 people speaking. And still, there is something about paying attention to everyone who is here. And one of the ideas I came up with is, might be nice that if we click on our names and rename ourselves and add the country after your name. So then we have, so you click on your name and then you can rename and then see where we are all from. At least we get an idea, more or less. Yeah, from India and USA and Scotland and more Canada, more US and so on. I think that's nice. Very, very many from the US and Canada. So thank you for that. And so through whatever happens here, I want to invite all of us to really pay attention to body, emotion, sensing, mind as possible. Also, when we ask you to do something like what we just did, just invitation to stay as much in presence and grounding or centering or whatever you call it for you. And as a check-in, we're just going to use the Zoom chat. And with this question, as you enter this group and this whole process of reading the book and these sessions, what question or what or feeling is most alive in you right now? So just give it some time. You don't need to rush into an answer, but what question or feeling is most alive in you right now? Just give it 1 or 2 sentences, and then we can just all read that in the chat. And Yeah, and just, I know for some it can be overwhelming to have so much input. But the invitation is to actually make your presence and your centering or grounding, make that a priority. If 40 answers is overwhelming, then just, you don't read them. That's a lot. Yeah. Whew. Okay, thank you. And I just invite you to be as present as you can with yourself and just look at the whatever 40, 50 squares on the screen and just realize how we are connecting across the globe. What I'm going to do next is just speak for maybe 10 minutes or so what I find is, or the crucial or essentials of chapter 1 and 2. And I go with the assumption that everyone has read chapter 1 or 2. That means I'm not going to repeat everything what I've written there. So I'm not going to explain it all. But even if you haven't read it yet, or there was somebody on the idea boards who said like, my body doesn't let me read it, can I still attend? Sure. You can just listen in, that's not a problem. So I want to articulate what to me are the two main ideas and for each chapter, or first the two of chapter 1, let me say it that way. And the first is that I think that everyone, and I mean really everyone, has the capacity to sense, to have that capacity of sensing energies that are not to be captured by touch or seeing or hearing, but that we can pick up other signals, let's say. And we do that all the time, everywhere we go. And what we want to do with collective presencing is actually become more aware of them, of that, of what we notice in a more subtle either atmosphere or I mean, that's the easiest thing, I think, to relate to. But it's also from our mainstream life, are we actually slowing down enough so that we actually notice it? what we actually do notice unconsciously. And then of course the next step is, and when we notice, do we actually integrate it in our lives so that it is not something we do, let's say, sitting on a meditation cushion, because that's an easy example. How do we integrate what we notice and what has meaning in our daily lives, step by step? And that's the second part is also related with that. I named it in the book that it's a process of becoming present. It's not that you say, oh, now I'm present and I'm present for the next, I don't know, 48 hours or something. Many times it's gone by the next 3 minutes or whatever, depends on what you encounter in your life. But the point is, I guess everyone here has done trainings, meditation, mindfulness practices, whatever practices you have done. How can you integrate it in daily life? Like, do you know what is your personal route back to center or back to grounding? Even when you're in conflict with your partner, or when you read some awful news, which we have many of, do you know what you do? Do you know yourself enough how you get back to center, back to grounding, and how you can apply whatever practices you have trained, how you apply that here and now? And that's like the crucial part of the first chapter. The first chapter is about me and myself, and then the chapters move from me more outwards, you could say. So for me, for chapter 2, which is about I and you, so let's say in relationship with one other person, what I find most important to name is I made a distinction in the book, but because many people, or let's say in many new age circles where I was in a long time ago, it's always like the ego is bad. But being a psychologist and a therapist, I don't like to call it ego. I call them our habitual responses, because you need a healthy ego to survive in the world. And I do want to point out that these patterns and the shadow, as most of you know, like, it's not anything that's bad. It's just, if I could just have a magic wand sometimes and just say, it's just what it is. I mean, they came into being as a dynamic to help ourselves to actually survive in whatever circumstances we were. And so it's not anything that should be looked, how you say that, looked up upon or something. Like, it just be, I would say, friendly to these parts, the habits we have, even if you really don't like them, and still understand deeply that they came into being out of a necessity. And the other side is also look at others with their patterns, and some of them we might not like at all, as also patterns that came into being because of their circumstances. Yeah, and it might be very unconscious circumstances, and there might be generations involved and all that, but can we also look with that kind of mildness to others? And so that's all I'm going to say now about the content of these chapters. And I want to do an experiment with all of you. And I know we are many, but it didn't feel like let's go into breakout rooms and all that. I want to invite us with the questions that are present, that we can actually use our sensing as we do in the practice. Like, am I called to speak a question? Is it bubbling up in me so that I feel like, okay, I can bring it? So I'm not collecting questions in the chat and then say, okay, I choose this one and this one and this one. I just want to invite us into the practice with the questions. And I also want to invite us, I'm not the expert. There's many people who have been in spaces like this, or in the practice already of collective presencing. So let's all tune our senses to when we speak, either a question or a response. Doesn't need to be an answer, could be a response that's meaningful. And let's see how that goes. I know it's an experiment with so many people, but we can try. And as Manu was so good of already opening that Discord channel, we can have more conversations with questions and responses over there in the next couple of days. I think with that, I'm just put my talking piece in the middle, as we normally do in this practice, and see like what question is really alive, and that is alive in you and might most likely be alive also in others, and see where we go from there. And I want to keep it to chapter 1 and 2 if possible.